Hi, this is Mike Ignatowski, the creator of the GreenFox spreadsheet, the spreadsheet that uses Excel programming to make the spreadsheet behave like an electronic baseball score sheet or scorebook, and it automatically computes the game stats, which can be a big-time time saver. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you find this video helpful.
In this video, I'd like to cover a new feature that was introduced in version 1.56, and that's the electronic or automatic dice roller feature. It's an optional feature, but let's see how it works. On the left of the score sheet, there's a pink button that says Show Dice, and let's click that, and it brings up this pop-up window, Dice Roller, but it's empty. And it's empty because we haven't configured our dice setup yet. So let's close this and go down here to the sheets or tabs at the bottom, and you notice there's a dice tab. So if we click the dice tab, this is what tells us everything we need to know about how to configure the dice as we'd like them for our GreenFox spreadsheet. In general, you can configure up to 9 different dice, and it's 3x3 configuration using this yellow table. And this is where you'd fill out the color and size of your dice. You can see here is an example table filled out that results in a dice roller window that looks like this. Each entry has a number and then a letter, and the number can be between 2 and 100. That's the number of sides on the dice or die, and then the letter, which is the color code, and it could be any of these 7 different letters for these 7 different colors. When you configure the dice in this table, you can see, let's look at this example. Each row is all rolled or randomized together. There's only one roll button per row. So if in this example, if I were to click this roll button, all 3 of these dice would be randomized or rolled. And each row has its own roll button, as you can see here. So you might want to take that into consideration depending on your game or your situation of which dice you want to roll together and which ones you don't, and think about that when you configure this window. So a couple important notes up here. You can see it says don't use any spaces or punctuation in between the number and the color code, or the number and the letter. They're just number and letter, no spaces. You can only use those certain letters for the colors. The number has to be between 2 and 100. For the 100-sided dice, a number 100, as it says here, will be shown as 00, and that's because each die can only show 2 digits as the way it's created. So 00 equals 100. And then the last thing it says, you must fill in each row from left to right. In other words, you must fill in column 1 and then column 2, etc. So that just means if you want to have dice on a given row, you should first fill in column 1. So let's do this for our situation. I'm not familiar with all the different baseball games out there and what dice they require, but I am familiar with Stratomatic, which uses 3 what they call 6-sided dice, or 3d6, and one of them is a different color than the other 2. So here, let's just say I want a 6-sided red. I'll put 6R, and then the next 2 I'll go with 6 green. So that's my whole first row. And then in Stratomatic they use a 20-sided dice to handle some situations, so I'll put in my number 20, and what color do I want this? Let's say I want this yellow, so I'll put a Y. And just let's go with this. This is the basics for all I really need to start. So once I'm finished, I click this Update Dice Roller Settings button, and if everything looks okay, I'll get this message. It says, you're good to go. I say okay, I go back to my score sheet, and now if I click the Show Dice button, this dice window should pop up like it does, and it shows the dice as I configured them. 3d6 on the top, a red one and two greens, and then a 20-sided. And you can see this little number below each die indicates the number of sides or faces on that particular die. And if we want to roll them, like here I want to roll these three dice, and maybe to determine what happens with Speedy Gonzalez here in the top of the 12, I'll click it. Oh, I got a 4, then this 6 and 3. So in Stratomatic, you add these up. You'd say, well, I rolled a 4, 9. And you can figure out what that result would be. And if I needed to roll a 20 to get the result, I could just click this here and it would roll randomize the 20. And it's as simple as that. If you realize that, oh, I need to change my configuration, so let's say I needed a 10-sided dice down here for some reason. Let's say I needed 100, just for a good example. I could close this window, go back to my dice sheet, and just update my window, or my table up here. So let's say I want this 100-sided die in this first spot. So I'll put in 100. Let's say I accidentally put a space in there, and I put 100 space B. But when I click this, then I click my update settings button, you'll see now I'm going to get this error message because it says 100 space B is invalid for a custom die configuration. And then it tells me some things about how it's supposed to work. But mainly this first line says there's no spaces or punctuation between in this configuration format. It's just going to be a number, then a letter. So, okay, I do that. Let me go back here and fix this. Let's just make it 100B for a 100-sided blue dice. And once I make my change, I click the update. Now it's all good. Go back to my score sheet, and now when I show my dice, I'll have this new format as such. And this bottom is 100-sided blue. You can see that it's working. Another nice thing about this dice roller window is that it's what's called, or terminology they use for Windows programming, is they say this window is modeless, which means you don't have to close it if you want to interact with something else in your program. So like in this situation, we're going to roll the dice for every batter to determine what happens. So let's say I roll it for Speedy Gonzalez here, and whatever happens, let's just say this 3-6 here, 3 and then a 3 plus 3 is 6 in Stratomatic, is a walk. So I go up here and I put a walk, but you notice I didn't have to close this button for this other window to pop up. And that's very convenient for this dice window because you don't want to have to keep opening it and closing it for every batter. Another nice thing about it is you put it wherever you want, but when you scroll this score sheet, it doesn't scroll that window. It just leaves it there, so it's not scrolled out of the view. If you're trying to jump down to, to the home team part or up to the visitor part, you can always see this window. So that's another convenient feature. Well, that wraps up this video. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it helpful. And please feel free to leave me some comments. And I hope that GreenFox spreadsheet will save you time on doing some stats and give you more time to play the games you want to play.